Welcome to EcoStories, the podcast that shares environmental issues through storytelling. I'm your host, Mel. As a South African and someone who constantly reads the news, I often wonder how the Russian Ukrainian war affects more than just the people. But because I'm an outsider, today's podcast, I will be joined by two Ukrainians
Софія,
and
Дарина.
and they will be introducing the concept of ecocide, a direct impact of the war. The first question of today is, what are the effects of ecocide on your country?
So I'm coming from the region of Kyiv near the capital, and the biggest problem in our region is probably the air pollution. For example, the fires that are happening at oil depots, warehouses, and industrial facilities, all of them have resulted in large scale emissions of harmful substances into the atmosphere. Also, the damage to industry and explosions have populated soils and water with chemicals, fuel, and debris. Plants and animals have experienced massive destruction, as well as a breakdown to their living conditions, leading to a decrease in biodiversity in my region. For example, among the victims are roe deer with burns, as well as animals that are vulnerable species under threat in Ukraine, such as bison, lynx, or eagles.
And for you, Darena?
I would like to talk more about the eastern part of Ukraine, which is the closest to the front line and correspondingly is affected the most. And so we can see the biggest ecocide events happening over there. For example, when the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant was blown up by Russian troops on 6th of June 2023. Back then, unique flora and fauna lost their habitat. Millions of aquatic animals, for example, over 11,000 tons of fish were lost. Up to 70% of the biodiversity was affected. And this event is considered one of the largest environmental disasters in Europe in the 21st century and has an impact not only in Ukraine, but all over the Europe. It's really important to raise awareness about it since the ecocide can seem very local and territory specific. However, its consequences extend far beyond national borders. The destruction of ecosystems and disruption of biodiversity contribute to global environmental instability.
I would also like to talk about the Askania Nova Biosphere Reserve. It is located in the Kherson region, the south of Ukraine, and it is not only a national treasure of Ukraine, but also a natural gem of world importance. Its systematic destruction is an example of military ecocide, a crime against nature, what we are talking today about, which in our opinion must receive international legal assessment. In the first days of July 2025, a new large-scale fire broke out in the Ascania Nova. The fire covered about 900 hectares in the reserve zone, destroying invaluable steppe biotopes. This is not the first case of destruction of this specific reserve ecosystem. Over the past 2 years, at least 8 fires have occurred here. Also, the causes of most of them are direct consequences of the Russian military presence. For example, air defense system, aviation, missile strikes, or construction or for fortifications.
So, a follow up question to that is, how do you feel about it?
Personally, I feel really frustrated because it seems like many people around the world still don't fully understand the scale of this strategy. It's not just an isolated incident, it's a massive environmental catastrophe that affects the entire region and will have long term consequences for generations to come. The nature doesn't have a voice of its own, and yet it suffers the most. The rivers, animals, and plants that once thrived in these ecosystems are now gone, and we can't simply rebuild them. It's really heartbreaking to think that Russian actions can so easily destroy something that took centuries to form.
But personally, I feel also hopeful because Ukraine could become the first country in the world to receive reparations for crimes against the environment. The main problem here is that unfortunately it is very hard to defend nature. The main problems in the investigation are the constant shelling of territories, also the danger of investigating areas experiencing active hostilities and explosives, also banning the presence of unauthorized people closer to the border.
A last and important question is, how can we make people more aware of what is happening?
In my opinion, it is very important to first of all spread information about the ecocide in Ukraine among your friends, among your family, also in your social medias, and try to learn new things about this every day in your daily life. For example, in Brussels, there is a new exhibition which has opened on the 8th of November, which is called Stop Ecocide Ukraine. If you're willing to know more about this and you can come here, it would be a very nice idea to educate yourself.
And where can people get more information about that?
You can find more information about that on Instagram, that is called yuaanimals.official. Yeah.
I agree with the idea that it's important to raise awareness about this problem, but it's also important to keep in mind that in order to stop an ecocide, we have to stop the war.
And that is it from today's podcast. I hope you learned something important about the challenges that the natural environment in Ukraine is facing. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to help us gain traction and raise awareness about these issues. Have a great one.